Another day, another dollar. Rain pattered against the diner windows, a soothing rhythm that Jenna had grown accustomed to. Jenna poured another cup of coffee, the aroma barely cutting through the greasy haze. She took a deep breath, savoring the brief moment of calm. It was a Tuesday like any other at Joe's place, filled with regulars and their usual orders. The hum of conversation and clinking of cutlery created a familiar symphony. 2 eggs over easy, rye toast, black coffee. Jenna could almost predict the orders before they were spoken. Pancakes, extra syrup, side of bacon. She knew the preferences of each customer by heart. Jenna knew the rhythm of the place by heart. Each step, each movement was a part of a well-rehearsed dance. 7 years she had spent in this diner, each day blurring into the next. The counter was her stage, and she performed her role with practiced precision. She wiped down the counter, her mind wandering. Tuesdays were always slow, giving her time to reflect on her life. Not that any day at Joe's was a whirlwind of excitement, but Tuesdays held a particular kind of quiet, a lull before the rush of the weekend. Jenna didn't mind. The quiet gave her time to think, to let her mind drift. She often found herself lost in memories of a different life. Sometimes it drifted to him, to the life they had planned. The dreams they had shared seemed like a distant echo now, but those thoughts always brought a familiar ache, a dull pain in her chest. She tried to push them away, focusing on the task at hand. The pain was a constant companion, a reminder of what she had lost. But she had learned to live with it, to carry on. She exchanged pleasantries with Mr. Thompson, who always ordered the same thing, a BLT and a side of fries. His stories of the old days brought a smile to her face. Refilling Mrs. Green's coffee, Jenna listened to her stories about her grandchildren. The warmth in Mrs. Green's eyes was a small comfort. She took orders with a practiced ease, her pen gliding over the notepad. Each order was a small piece of the puzzle that made up her day. Serving food, she moved with a grace that came from years of repetition. Each plate was delivered with a smile, a small act of kindness, a shared laugh with a customer here, a kind word there. These small interactions kept her going. They were the bright spots in her otherwise monotonous days. As the clock ticked on, Jenna found herself lost in the routine. The hours slipped by, each one blending into the next. A bell chimed above the door, snapping Jenna back to reality. She straightened up, ready to greet the newcomer. She plastered a smile on her face, ready to greet the newcomer. It was a part of her job, a mask she wore every day. That's when she saw him. Jenna's day started early, often before the sun had risen. She would help the cook prepare the day's specials, her hands moving swiftly and efficiently. Setting the tables, she made sure everything was in its place. Each fork, knife, and napkin had a specific spot, a small detail that she took pride in. She checked the inventory, making notes of what needed to be ordered. It was a task she had taken on herself, ensuring the diner never ran out of essentials. A quick chat with the cook, sharing a laugh over a joke, was a small but cherished part of her routine. These moments of camaraderie made the long hours bearable. During her short breaks, Jenna would sip her coffee, watching the world go by outside the diner's windows. It was her moment of peace amidst the chaos. Greeting the regulars, she felt a sense of community. Each familiar face was a reminder that she was a part of something bigger, a small but significant part of their lives. At the end of the day, Jenna would clean up, her movements slow and deliberate. The quiet of the empty diner was a stark contrast to the bustling hours before. Locking up, she would take one last look around, ensuring everything was in order. The lights would go off, and she would step out into the night, ready to do it all over again tomorrow. Jenna cherished her interactions with the regulars. They were more than just customers. They were friends who shared their lives with her. In her quiet moments, Jenna would jot down her thoughts in a small journal. It was her way of processing the day's events and keeping her dreams alive. She often glanced at a photo she kept in her pocket, a reminder of the man she once loved. It was a bittersweet memory that she held close to her heart. Helping an elderly customer to their seat, Jenna's kindness shone through. She treated each person with care and respect, making them feel valued. The tips she received were modest, but they were a testament to her hard work and dedication. Each coin and bill was a small token of appreciation. As she looked out the window, Jenna often wondered what her life would have been like if things had turned out differently, but she knew she couldn't dwell on the past. A child's laughter brought her back to the present. Jenna's smile was genuine as she interacted with the young customer, her heart warming at the innocence and joy. Closing the register at the end of the day, Jenna felt a sense of accomplishment. Despite the challenges, she took pride in her work and the life she had built. Walking home under the streetlights, Jenna reflected on the day's events. Each step was a reminder of her resilience and strength, qualities that had carried her through the toughest times. Time seemed to stop. The menu slipped from Jenna's grasp, fluttering to the floor like a fallen bird. Her breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped animal. It couldn't be. It couldn't possibly be him. And yet, there he stood, as if plucked from her memories and dropped into the middle of Joe's place. He hadn't aged a day. The same piercing blue eyes, the ones that could see right through her, that had stolen her heart all those years ago. The same crooked smile that always made her melt. Even the dimple on his chin, a tiny imperfection that she had always found endearing, was still there. He looked just as he had on their wedding day, radiating warmth and that easy confidence that drew people to him. He hadn't noticed her yet. He was scanning the room, his brow furrowed slightly as if he were trying to place himself. Jenna couldn't believe her eyes. Memories flooded back, dancing under the stars, laughing until their sides hurt, holding hands on a chilly evening, sharing a kiss that felt like the world had stopped. They had exchanged vows, promising to love each other forever. He was her husband, her soulmate. They had dreams, plans for a future together, a house, maybe even children. Tears welled up in her eyes, her lips trembling as she whispered to herself, "How is this possible?" She wanted to reach out, to touch him, to make sure he was real, but her hand stopped midair. A mix of joy and fear washed over her. What if he was just a figment of her imagination? She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to steady herself. When she opened them again, he was still there. This was real. He was real. A small smile crept onto her face, hope blossoming in her chest. Jenna's mind raced. Is this a dream? Am I losing my mind? She thought. She remembered their arguments, the way they always made up, the love that never wavered, the road trips, the adventures, the way he made her feel alive. Tears of joy mixed with relief streamed down her face. He's really here, she thought. She reached out again, her hand trembling, determined to touch him, to confirm he was real. Please let this be real, she whispered, her voice barely audible. A small smile crept onto her face, hope blossoming in her chest. Jenna remembered the first time they met, how he had walked into her life and turned it upside down. They had fallen in love so quickly it felt like destiny. They shared their dreams, their fears, and their secrets. Every moment with him felt like a treasure. They faced challenges together, supporting each other through thick and thin. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, celebrating milestones, cherishing memories. They had built a life together, one filled with love and laughter. And now, after all these years, he was back. Jenna's heart swelled with a mix of joy and fear, wondering what this meant for their future. Daniel? The name escaped her lips, a breathless whisper that hung in the air between them. He looked up, his gaze drawn to hers. Recognition flickered in his eyes, a spark that quickly ignited into a raging inferno. His eyes widened, his lips parting in silent astonishment. He looked as if he had seen a ghost, and perhaps he had. Jenna couldn't move, couldn't speak. She felt like a statue, frozen in place by a mixture of shock and disbelief. The diner, with its clattering dishes and the murmur of conversations, faded into the background. All that existed in that moment was him, standing there before her, looking as if he had been resurrected. He took a step towards her, then another. His movements were hesitant, as if he were afraid she would vanish like a mirage. "Jenna?" His voice was rough with emotion, tinged with a disbelief that mirrored her own. Memories flooded Jenna's mind, days spent laughing together, nights whispering secrets, the warmth of his embrace. She remembered their arguments, the tension that had once driven them apart, and the tearful goodbye that had haunted her dreams. Her heart ached with the weight of those lost years, the pain of his absence, and the overwhelming joy of seeing him again. Her hand trembled as she reached out, afraid that this moment might dissolve into a cruel dream. She recalled the way his hand felt in hers, the walks they took together, and the intimate moments they shared. But as their fingers touched, the reality of his presence anchored her, filling her with a profound sense of relief and love. Jenna's mind was a whirlwind of emotions, torn between the joy of his return and the pain of their past. She remembered the nights she cried herself to sleep, clutching old photos, wondering where he had gone. Yet amidst the turmoil, a sense of determination emerged. She had survived without him, but now she had to face the reality of his return. Their eyes locked, and in that intense moment, Jenna knew that their story was far from over. Their love story had been the stuff of fairy tales. She, a small-town girl with dreams bigger than her bank account. He, a self-made millionaire with a charming smile and a heart of gold. They had met at a charity gala, a chance encounter that had blossomed into a whirlwind romance. He had swept her off her feet, showering her with love and affection. For the first time in her life, Jenna had felt truly seen, truly cherished. He had proposed on a moonlit beach, the waves crashing against the shore a symphony to their love. Jenna had said yes without hesitation, her heart overflowing with happiness. Their wedding had been a grand affair, a testament to their love and his extravagant lifestyle. They had danced the night away, lost in their own little world. Jenna had never felt so alive, so happy. They traveled the world together, creating memories in every city they visited. They found joy in the simple things like cooking meals together and sharing quiet moments at home. Every holiday was a celebration of their love, filled with laughter and cherished traditions. They watched countless sunsets together, each one a reminder of their deep connection. Their home was filled with photos and mementos of their journey, each one a testament to their enduring love. Their happiest moments were often the simplest, like picnics in the park and laughing together over shared meals. They loved exploring new places hand in hand, discovering the world together. Cozy evenings by the fireplace, wrapped in each other's arms, were their sanctuary. But like any love story, theirs had its challenges. Arguments and misunderstandings tested their bond. The hardest moment came when he had to leave for a business trip, a trip that would change everything. Distance strained their relationship, and communication became difficult. Then came the letter, the news that he was missing, presumed dead. Jenna's world shattered. She was left alone, clinging to memories and the hope that somehow he might still be alive. Jenna found solace in her work, becoming a waitress to make ends meet and keep herself busy. Despite the pain, she never lost hope, holding on to the love they had shared and the belief that one day they would be reunited. They had shared countless quiet moments where words were unnecessary and their love spoke volumes. Their laughter was a melody that filled their home, each joke and playful moment a note in their symphony of love. Through every challenge, they had supported each other, their bond growing stronger with each trial. They had dreamed of a future together, planning their lives and envisioning a home filled with love and laughter. Every kiss, every embrace, was a promise of their unwavering love and commitment to each other. Their first date had been at a quaint coffee shop where they talked for hours, sharing their dreams and aspirations. They loved attending concerts together, losing themselves in the music and the moment. Adventurous at heart, they often went hiking, finding peace and joy in nature's beauty. They shared a passion for giving back, often volunteering together and making a difference in their community. Each anniversary was a milestone celebrated with heartfelt toasts and romantic dinners. Through life's storms, they found strength in each other, their love a beacon of hope and resilience. They dreamed of starting a family, imagining the joy and laughter of future children filling their home. Their relationship was built on trust and intimacy, sharing secrets and dreams that bound them closer. When faced with difficult decisions, they leaned on each other, finding strength in their partnership. Every milestone was a celebration, a testament to their journey and the love that had grown stronger with time. The day he left for his business trip, they had embraced at the airport, unaware it would be their last goodbye. The news of his disappearance came like a thunderbolt, shattering the world they had built together. Despite the heartache, Jenna held on to hope, believing that their love would endure and bring them back together one day. But then, the whispers started. Rumors of his business dealings, of shady investments and risky ventures. Jenna had brushed them off at first, refusing to believe that the man she loved, the man who had brought so much joy into her life, could be involved in anything illegal. He was a good man, a generous man. He wouldn't jeopardize their happiness, their future. Yet, the whispers persisted, growing louder with each passing day. The news articles started appearing, hinting at a scandal brewing, a storm that threatened to engulf everything in its path. Jenna had confronted him, her heart heavy with dread. He had denied everything, assuring her that it was all a big misunderstanding, that his rivals were trying to sabotage him. He had held her close, his voice soothing as he promised her that everything would be all right. But Jenna, now working as a waitress, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She began to notice small inconsistencies like hidden documents and unexplained financial records. She overheard conversations that hinted at deeper secrets, fueling her suspicions. Determined to uncover the truth, Jenna started to investigate on her own, following leads and taking notes. She pieced together clues from old photographs and past interactions, slowly unraveling the mystery. With each discovery, her doubts grew stronger, pushing her to confront the man she once trusted implicitly. The final straw came when she saw a newspaper headline that confirmed her worst fears. Jenna knew she had to take action, no matter how painful it might be. Friends and family began to look at her with concern, their whispers adding to her growing unease. Text messages from friends expressed their doubts, making Jenna question everything she thought she knew. People started avoiding eye contact, their silence speaking volumes. Jenna knew she had to trust her instincts, no matter how isolating it felt. The whispers seemed to follow her everywhere, each glance and hushed conversation deepening her sense of paranoia. She noticed people acting strangely around her, their behavior only adding to her growing suspicion. One day she found a cryptic note slipped into her bag, warning her to stop digging. Jenna felt a chill run down her spine, realizing that she might be in more danger than she had ever imagined. And then came the crash. Daniel had boarded his private jet for what was supposed to be a routine business trip. The weather had been ominous, with storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Air traffic control had warned of severe turbulence, but the pilot, confident in his skills, decided to proceed. As the plane ascended, the turbulence grew worse. The pilot and co-pilot discussed their options, but the storm was relentless. Lightning struck near the aircraft, causing panic among the passengers. Oxygen masks deployed as the plane began to lose altitude. The pilot made a distress call, and air traffic control responded urgently, tracking the plane's rapid descent on radar. The jet crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, debris scattering across the waves. Emergency response teams were immediately mobilized. Jenna received the devastating phone call, dropping the phone in shock and collapsing to the floor. Search parties scoured the ocean, but the vast expanse yielded no clues. Daniel was presumed dead. Investigators examined the wreckage and concluded that the crash was due to engine failure, a tragic accident. Jenna clung to memories, often staring out the window, hoping for a miracle. Her co-workers tried to comfort her, but the pain was too deep, the loss too profound. Jenna would walk alone on the beach, the waves crashing at her feet, the sunset a reminder of the days that had slipped away. Every night she would light a candle and pray, tears streaming down her face, hoping against hope that Daniel would somehow return to her. The investigation into the crash was thorough, with experts analyzing every piece of data from the plane's black box. Families of the other passengers held vigils, lighting candles and praying for their loved ones. Jenna had received a letter from the airline, detailing the final moments of the flight. The shock was overwhelming. She sought therapy, trying to cope with the immense loss, but the sessions often ended in tears. Her friends and family rallied around her, offering support, but the void left by Daniel's absence was too vast to fill. Jenna would often find herself staring at the ocean, the waves a constant reminder of the crash that had taken Daniel away. She began to write in a journal, pouring out her heart, trying to make sense of the tragedy that had upended her life. Visiting the memorial site became a ritual, a way to feel close to Daniel, to remember the love they had shared. Despite the overwhelming grief, Jenna held on to a glimmer of hope, believing that somehow, somewhere, Daniel was still with her. Life had gone on, as it always does. Jenna had been forced to pick up the pieces of her shattered heart, to rebuild her life without him. She had sold their mansion, the memories too painful to bear, and moved into a modest apartment. She had taken a job at Joe's place, finding solace in the routine, in the familiar faces of the regulars. The years had passed in a blur of grief and healing. Jenna had learned to live with the pain, to carry the weight of her loss. She sought help through therapy and support groups, finding strength in the shared experiences of others. She had never forgotten Daniel, his memory forever etched in her heart, but she had made peace with his absence, accepting that some wounds never truly heal. They simply learn to coexist with the rest of you. Jenna found new purpose in helping others, channeling her pain into acts of kindness and community service. Her friends and family had been her rock, offering unwavering support and love through her darkest days. Their presence had been a beacon of hope, guiding her through the storm and helping her find her way back to herself. And now, here he was, standing in Joe's place, looking as if he had stepped out of a time capsule, alive, and looking at her with a mixture of love, confusion, and a hint of something else she couldn't quite place. Jenna choked out the single word, her voice barely a whisper. How? It was the only question her stunned mind could conjure. How was he here? How was this even possible? He was supposed to be dead, lost at sea, gone forever. And yet, here he was, standing before her, disrupting the fragile peace she had carved out for herself. Daniel's hand fell away from her cheek, his expression a mixture of relief and bewilderment. Jenna, it's me. It's really me. His voice was filled with an urgency that sent chills down her spine. It was his voice, the same voice that used to whisper sweet nothings in her ear, the same voice that could calm her fears with a single word. But it was different, too, tinged with an underlying current of something she couldn't quite place. Fear? Guilt? Jenna shook her head, her mind struggling to reconcile the impossible image before her with the reality she had known for the past 7 years. But the crash. She turned to her friend, her voice trembling. How can this be real? He was gone. We all saw the wreckage. Her friend looked equally baffled, trying to offer comfort. I don't know, Jenna. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe he survived somehow. Jenna's eyes darted back to Daniel, suspicion creeping into her voice. Where have you been all this time? Why didn't you come back sooner? Daniel's face contorted with pain. It's a long story, Jenna. One I promised to tell you. But right now, I need you to believe me. Jenna felt torn, her heart battling with her mind. Could she trust him? Could she believe in the impossible? Taking a deep breath, she nodded slowly. All right, Daniel. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything. And so, with a mixture of hope and trepidation, Jenna braced herself for the story that would change everything she thought she knew. Jenna's mind raced with questions. She needed answers, and she needed them now. Around her, the restaurant buzzed with whispers and shocked glances. Everyone was trying to make sense of the impossible scene unfolding before them. Jenna turned to another waitress, her voice urgent. Did you see him come in? Did anyone see where he came from? The waitress shook her head, equally puzzled. No, Jenna, he just appeared. One moment he wasn't there, and the next he was... Jenna's determination grew. She needed the truth, no matter how unbelievable it might be. She approached another customer, her voice shaking. Did you see him come in? Did anyone notice anything strange? The customer shook their head, equally baffled. No, I didn't see anything. It's like he just appeared out of thin air. Jenna began pacing, her mind racing with possibilities. Could this be a trick? A cruel joke? Or was there a logical explanation she was missing? As Daniel began to speak, Jenna listened intently, her emotions a whirlwind of hope, fear, and confusion. I know. Daniel's voice was soft, soothing. He took another step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. It's a long story, Jenna. A very long story. But I'm here now. I'm alive. And I need you to know that everything I ever told you, everything we had, it was all real. His words washed over her, each syllable a hammer blow to the wall she had erected around her heart. Real, was it? Had their love been real? Or was it all built on a foundation of lies and deceit? The doubt that had plagued her before his disappearance returned with a vengeance, whispering treacherous possibilities in her ear. He reached out, his hand hovering hesitantly in the space between them. Jenna, please. Around them, the world seemed to hold its breath. Her colleagues, frozen in shock, whispered among themselves. Jenna's hands trembled, her eyes welling up with tears. The emotional turmoil was almost too much to bear. A friend reached out, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder, but Jenna barely noticed, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She looked at Daniel, her heart torn between love and pain, the weight of his return pressing down on her. Jenna's initial reaction was one of pure shock, her eyes widening, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. She tried to understand, her brows furrowing as her eyes searched Daniel's face for answers. The emotional turmoil was evident, her hands clutching her chest, her breathing quickening as she grappled with the reality of his return. Jenna sat down, her head in her hands, trying to process the overwhelming emotions flooding her mind. Memories of their love flashed before her eyes, each one a bittersweet reminder of what they once had. She looked at a photo of them together, tears streaming down her face as she questioned the reality of his return. Confusion, anger, and longing battled within her, each emotion vying for dominance as she tried to make sense of it all. Finally, determination set in. She stood up, ready to confront Daniel and demand the truth. With purposeful steps, she walked towards Daniel, her expression resolute, ready to face whatever answers he had to give. Her colleagues exchanged worried glances, some looking away, others whispering about the sudden reappearance of the man they thought was gone forever. One friend in particular tried to catch Jenna's eye, concern etched on their face, but Jenna was too focused on Daniel to notice. Even the manager, usually so composed, looked confused and unsure of what to do in the face of such an unexpected reunion. Slowly, her colleagues resumed their tasks, but their eyes kept darting back to the couple, unable to fully focus on their work. Whispers of concern and speculation spread among them, each person trying to piece together the mystery of Daniel's return. The tension between Jenna and Daniel was palpable, a storm of emotions swirling around them as they stood face to face. Jenna's face showed a mix of determination and vulnerability, ready to hear the truth no matter how painful it might be. But then, the bell above the door chimed again, breaking the spell that had settled over them. A group of teenagers bustled in, their laughter a jarring contrast to the silent storm raging within Jenna. The sight of them, so young, so full of life, brought back a flood of memories. Memories of her own lost youth, of the life she had envisioned with Daniel, a life that had been cruelly ripped away from her. She remembered the dreams they had shared, the plans they had made, and the love that had once seemed unbreakable. Anger surged through her, hot and fierce. Anger at Daniel for leaving her, for putting her through the hell of believing he was dead. Anger at herself for letting him back in, for even considering the possibility that he might have a reasonable explanation for his disappearance. Explain? Jenna finally spoke, her voice trembling with a mixture of emotions. Her heart ached with a confusing blend of love and betrayal, hope and despair. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, to find some semblance of control over the chaos within. In that moment, Jenna realized she needed answers, not just for herself, but for the life she had lost and the future she still hoped to reclaim. The years of struggle, the nights spent wondering what could have been, all weighed heavily on her. She looked at Daniel, her eyes filled with a newfound determination. This was her moment to confront the past and seek the truth. Around them, the other diners began to notice the tension, their curious glances adding to the weight of the moment. Jenna felt the pressure of their stares, the weight of their silent judgments, but she knew she couldn't back down now. Her hands trembled, gripping the tray tightly as if it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. The whispers around her grew louder, each murmur a reminder of the eyes that were now fixed on her, waiting for her next move. Jenna's face was a canvas of raw emotion, a mix of determination and vulnerability that spoke volumes of her inner turmoil. Daniel's remorseful expression only added to the complexity of her feelings, making it harder to decipher the truth from the lies. With a deep breath, Jenna took a step forward, her resolve solidifying with each passing second. This was her moment, and she was ready to face it head-on. He flinched as if she had struck him. The pain in his eyes was evident, a raw vulnerability that tugged at her heartstrings. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. 7 years. 7 years of silence, of unanswered questions, of sleepless nights spent wondering what had happened to him, if he had ever truly loved her. Jenna, please. During those years, Jenna threw herself into her work at the diner, finding solace in the routine and the familiar faces of her regular customers. She kept a journal, pouring her heart out onto the pages, and read countless self-help books, searching for answers and ways to heal. Jenna attended support groups and sought therapy, trying to piece together her shattered heart and make sense of her emotions. She picked up new hobbies like painting and gardening, activities that allowed her to express herself and find moments of peace. Slowly, she began to rebuild her life, finding joy in the little things and surrounding herself with supportive friends and family. Yet the memories of Daniel lingered, and she often found herself reflecting on their past, the love they had shared, and the dreams they had once built together. Through meditation and yoga, Jenna learned to find inner peace, accepting that some questions might never be answered. She often looked at old photos and held on to a locket he had given her, tears welling up as she remembered the promises they had made. In her journal, she wrote letters to him, letters that would never be sent, expressing her pain, her anger, and her longing for closure. She took long walks on the beach, the sound of the waves providing a backdrop to her thoughts as she tried to make sense of the silence that had enveloped her life. Jenna reached out to friends, having deep conversations that helped her process her emotions and find the strength to move forward. As she stood there, Jenna's mind drifted back to the countless nights she spent reflecting on their past, the memories they had shared, and the dreams they had once built together. Despite the pain and confusion, a small part of her still held on to hope, a hope that one day she could find closure and perhaps a new beginning. Jenna knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but she was determined to face it head-on, to find her own path, and to embrace whatever the future held for her. He reached for her again, but she took a step back, putting distance between them. His touch, once a source of comfort and reassurance, now felt foreign, almost dangerous. "No, Daniel." Jenna shook her head, her resolve hardening. "I think you should go." She couldn't do this right now, couldn't face the whirlwind of emotions his presence stirred within her. She needed time to process, to think, to decide what she wanted, what she believed. He opened his mouth to speak, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "Just go, Daniel. We'll talk later." He hesitated for a moment longer, his gaze searching hers as if trying to memorize every detail of her face. Then, with a sigh of defeat, he turned and walked out of the diner, leaving Jenna standing there amidst the clatter of dishes and the smell of coffee, her world turned upside down once more.